I recently saw an illustration of kids riding their bike through a neighborhood in the summer. For a lot of people, I think it probably brings back warm memories. For me, it makes me homesick for something I never had. It's not just that image either. Snowy city streets at night on my way to go grab coffee, taking the subway alone for the first time, watching a great big parade down city streets with my family. These are all experiences that were never really in my life, yet somehow they feel like they should be a part of me. I've always been fascinated by that feeling, a kind of nostalgia for things that never happened. I grew up in a rural county in Oklahoma, about 15 minutes from the nearest town. No sidewalks, no subways, no neighborhoods full of kids, just my neighbor's cows and the small church that my father was the pastor of. We took trips, of course. I've seen the mountains, I've played in the snow, I've even ridden the subway a few times. But those moments were fleeting, more akin to postcards as opposed to permanence, prone to be forgotten. And now, as an adult, I sometimes look back on my childhood with a complicated bittersweetness. Not exactly regret, but an awareness or imagining of how differently my life might have turned out had I been born somewhere else or taken a few braver chances when I was younger. It is very easy to allow these feelings to eat you alive if you're not careful. Take C from David Lowry's A Ghost Story. In life, he was living a fine existence. He was married, he was a musician. C, however, dies unexpectedly in a car accident, and his soul refuses to move on. Prior to his accident, his wife M had shared with him that she is used to moving around a lot and would usually leave notes, an extension of herself, hidden somewhere in the house. As the ghost of C watches M live her life, ultimately getting into some new relationships and moving away from the house, she hides a note in the wall and covers it up. C becomes wholly obsessed with collecting this note, scratching and digging at the wall for years, decades. New families move in and out of the home, the world changes around, the house is abandoned and demolished. Everything moves forward except for him. C was given a chance to pass on after death, but he didn't take it. He was still clinging to something unfinished, a life, a future, and most importantly, a note that he is wholly convinced is meant for him. Time begins to behave strangely after that, decades collapse into moments, the world rushes forward without him, years flicker by in the blink of an eye.
I wanted to read you something I wrote for you, which is about the Benny I've known for 11 years now. It's called The Great Life of Benjamin Brin.
Before Your Eyes is a game about time slipping through your fingers. It's meant to be played in a single sitting, using your webcam as the controller. Every time you blink in real life, the story has a chance to move forward, sometimes gently, sometimes violently, causing you to miss moments or years of Benjamin's life before you even realize they're gone. The game begins with you being picked up by the ferryman, and what quickly becomes clear is a space between life and death. He tells you that he's taking you to the gatekeeper, who will decide whether or not Benjamin is welcome into paradise. Before that happens, however, Benjamin is asked to tell the story of his life. The good, the bad, and everything in between. Through reflecting upon Benny's memories, you learn that he was an only child, adored by his parents, and remarkably talented. He was a very gifted pianist, following after his mother, and during a long stint of sickness that left him bedridden, he learned that he was an even more talented artist. As he grows older, that talent carries him forward. His paintings bring him success, recognition, and a sense that his life is becoming something real. But then, unexpectedly, his mother passes away, and with her goes the emotional center of his work. Throughout his childhood, his mother's expectations were enormous. She believed in Benny's potential so fiercely that it began to drive a wedge between her and her husband, and her and her son. And after her death, the pressure didn't disappear. It became something that Benny carried inside of himself. It's clear that once his mother is gone, Benny is haunted by two conflicting feelings at once. Regret that he never became the pianist she wanted him to be, and resentment that so much of his childhood was spent chasing a version of himself that wasn't truly him. Those two emotions pull him in opposite directions and together leave him stuck, unable to move forward, but unable to go back. Ultimately, though, through reflection of memories and mementos of the past, Benny is able to move on, reinvigorated. His understanding of his mother's artistic ability inspired his newest paintings. He reconnects with old friends and comes to terms with his childhood. Now, back in the ferry between life and death, the ferryman is elated, and he should be. This is the story of a remarkable life, a full life, one about resilience, talent, love. Except, most of that was a lie. Benny didn't live that life, no matter how much he wanted to. There aren't many people who wouldn't want to go change their past, at least parts of it. Everyone has regrets and things they'd like back. Fiction's solution to this is to often allow people a chance to go back and change things, typically with the sincere yet simple message that maybe my life really wasn't that bad after all. In Matt Haig's 2020 book, The Midnight Library, Nora, our protagonist, who feels as though they have wasted every ounce of potential they had, ultimately attempts to take her own life. Following that attempt, she finds herself in a seemingly endless library that allows her to travel back into her life as though she had followed different paths in an attempt to change things, or even feel more grateful for the life she lived. It's a gentle, nice idea, but of course it is also fantasy. In the real world, we don't get to browse the lives we didn't live. We don't get to confirm which choices were mistakes and which ones quietly saved us. We never get to know what would have happened had we turned left instead of right. That uncertainty, that dreadful not knowing, is just the cost of being alive. We don't get to try out other lives, and even if we could, we shouldn't. Freebird Games is primarily known for their remarkably touching game To the Moon, a story which Doctors Eva Rosalind and Neil Watts, representatives of Sigmund Corps, enter the memories of people on their deathbeds and rewrite their lives into ones they wished they had lived. To the Moon is a beautiful love story about reconnecting Johnny and River, but its sequel, Finding Paradise, offers an even more poignant look at life and regret. In Finding Paradise, Rosalind and Watts continue their work, now hired by a man named Colin Reed, with a strange request. Change something, but change nothing at all. As they move backwards through his memories, they're confused. There's a few moments that don't go quite right, spilled drinks, botched marriage proposals. But all in all, Colin did not live a failed life. He was an accomplished pilot, he had a family. By any reasonable measure, he did fine. Great even. And yet, he came to them anyway, haunted by something he couldn't quite name. They eventually discover a friendship Colin had as a child with Faye, his neighbor. Faye and Colin were inseparable despite their opposite personalities. Colin being quiet and thoughtful, with Faye being impulsive and boisterous. But while she meant everything to him as a child, she is entirely absent from his adult life. At first, the two assume the obvious, that Faye was the life he never chose, and that he secretly wishes he would have been with her instead of his wife Sophia. But further investigation reveals something stranger. Faye never existed. She was an imaginary friend, created by a lonely boy to cope with absent parents and the difficulty of making friends. As Colin's condition reaches a critical level, Faye takes control of the program to fulfill his final wish. But instead of rewriting his life into something more traditionally ideal, she simply removes Sigmund Corp itself, erasing the very possibility of changing his past. By taking away the option to fix everything, Colin is allowed to live his life, regrets and all, without the constant temptation of what might have been. In one final visit before he dies, Colin and Faye reunite. When she asks if he has any regrets, he answers honestly, of course he does, but he's still grateful for the life he was given, a life that was firmly his. Finding Paradise offers a devastating truth. The fantasy of fixing your life is seductive, but the moment you perfect it, it stops being real. It stops being yours. Colin lived a full life and was haunted by the idea that he could change things to be perfect. Benny was never granted that luxury at all. That illness that Benny suffered from as a child didn't go away. Benny passed away before he had the opportunity to live that life. And yes, Benny did lie to the ferryman, but not because he's trying to cheat heaven. He lies because he's terrified that the truth won't be enough. That if he didn't become who he thought he was supposed to be, maybe his life didn't matter at all. It's not just the fear of a child, it's the fear that many of us have, and it's devastating. To those playing, Benny's death is profoundly unjust, and unfairness at the highest level. But it does not mean that Benny's life was meaningless. The story Benny tells the ferryman, the successful artist, the full triumphant adulthood, is a story he wrote to protect himself from that fear. It's the life he wasn't going to get to have. And when his mother reads it, she doesn't recognize her son in it, because the boy she loves wasn't a finished story. She sits with him in his final moments and reads him her own story, one that reminds him of who he was. She tells him of the life he brought to their household. She reconciles that she wasn't entirely fair to him by trying to live vicariously through him. She reminds him of just how much he meant to their neighbor, Chloe, a young girl who at the time was all alone. She assures him that he was everything he needed to be. None of this could ever make up for the unjust and early end to Benny's life. It doesn't make up for the pain that he and his family went through. But it means something existed, and that something was his. I still think about those kids on the bikes. I still envision sitting on my father's shoulders watching the ball drop in New York City. I still think about what I might be doing if I had worked a little harder, or made one more different decision. But those people aren't me. The child I once was envisioned a lot of things, and made an incalculable amount of decisions. If I talked to my 10-year-old self right now, there is no chance he would ever guess the situation I'm in. But it was him who led me to where I am. To my incredible wife. To my entirely unique group of friends. I've experienced love, heartbreak, success, failure. I've celebrated and I've mourned. And all of it has become a life that is entirely and exclusively mine. C isn't the only one struggling to move on. Out his window, another ghost waits in a neighboring house. When C asks who they're waiting for, they simply say, "I don't remember." Years pass, the house is abandoned, the world changes. And eventually, the other ghost looks to him and says, "I don't think they're coming." And then they're gone, because they stopped waiting. And after the world turns itself over, after time collapses and repeats, C finally reaches the note he's been chasing. And when he does, he disappears too. Not because he found the answer he wanted, but because he no longer needed one. Thank you for watching.